Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
The stars belong to the sky. The leaves belong to the tree. The grape belong to the vine. The sharks belong to the ocean. And then I belong to AA. Isn't that wonderful that I belong to AA? Isn't that wonderful that I belong to AA? My name is Bra Babes. I'm an alcoholic, and they allow me to attend meeting in Soweto, in Bethesda, in Whistle Stop, and the others, and the others, and the others. You know, wherever I lay my head, in AA is my home. But before I dwelled into the business of my business today, I'd like to tell you that, my sobriety date is the 30th of December, 1977. In my 39 years of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have never been asked to speak in a spiritual meeting. I have never been asked to speak in a spiritual meeting. You don't know how I felt when I was asked to speak in a spiritual meeting. That's why I look like a homeland ambassador today. But thank you very much for the committee. I don't know how to express this. And then again, what is remarkable about my day today is that I got my spiritual experience in my first Pretoria convention 39 years ago. It's just unbelievable. I am a product of 1976. And then I came in, I was full of politics and full of hatred. When I was caught by Alcoholics Anonymous, then I came, and then I used to sit right at the back. And then during my time, Alcoholics Anonymous in South Africa was populated by almost 99.3% white and 75% Afrikaners. And the convention, all the convention speakers were almost 75% Africans. Remember, I come from an era where Afrikaans was forced down my throat. I was taught English in Afrikaans, mathematics in Afrikaans, Zulu in Afrikaans, Afrikaans in Afrikaans. So I was up to here with Afrikaans. When anybody stand up and take up the podium speaking Afrikaans, I would walk out until one man, Opet from Cape Town, took the podium and my imaginations were fired. That man helped me take a 180-degree turn. Wherever he is, I would want to thank him. We must be careful what we say in this podium, because it will either break or make an alcoholic. And then the second remarkable thing I want to talk about today, I want to say to Frank, the chairperson of the committee, it is in moments like this when one experiences the uselessness of words. for their failure to articulate what resonates in the southwestern corner of our hearts. I was taught English in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the University of Wisdom. Because I came in here, I was a criminal, I was a thug. I did not have the past, I did not have the present, I did not have the future. I'm the fourth son in the family of 14. Both my parents have never seen an inside of a classroom. We were so many at home that my father never knew us, never called us by our names. He would call you by the t-shirt you're wearing that particular day. Hey, Wena. Hey, Wena. With a torn t-shirt. Because half of us were wearing one t-shirt. And then I was lucky. God guided me. And then worst of all, I lived in Soweto, in the west part of Soweto. Soweto is divided, categorized. That is the first class Soweto, second class, third class, and underclass Soweto. I come from Zola, the underclass Soweto. Then when I was growing up, I was yearning to be a human being. And then it was west. And worst of all, before that, I earned a living at the age of 10. I learned to sell peanuts, first in football matches, and then I graduated. I went into trains. I went into local trains. I went into international trains, And then I earned myself a favorite of my mother until I took to drinking. And then, colleagues, it was just worse. I had a vision as a young man. When I drank, I saw that vision fade away because of the things I began to do. I became a thug. I stole almost everything you can think of, even tap water. Tap water is free in Soweto even today. I stole it thinking that it was glycerine. And then, worst of all, I got so drunk. One day, I woke up in the morning. I was told by my siblings, they all came to me wanting to kill me. And my mother stood between me and my siblings. And then I was told that I have beaten my own mother. Colleagues, that is one cross I'm going to carry until I go 6 feet underground. But it's all I'm lucky. That one I don't remember. I went to drink to try to forget that. And then people who say alcohol make you forget your problems, they are lying. It multiplies them. Because when I was drunk, I came back home. All my siblings, it was on a Sunday, all my siblings have went their different ways. My mother was all by herself. When she saw me, she went backward like a car coming out of a garage, afraid of her son. I said, Mama, did you say I've beaten you? I beat her for the second time. My God, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. That secret, my mother went with it to the grave. You're privileged to hear it in this podium. Then it became worse. I came in and out of jails. I came in and out of jails. Then, as I've said, I grew up in a height of an apartheid era. I was hired as a cleaner in a laboratory. And then as a cleaner, I was privileged because I was the only person who had an access to white toilets. And then in the white toilets and the women toilet, I stole their passes. And then I politicized my criminal activities. Then I said to myself, I was stealing from white women because they are the owners of the means of production. It made me feel good. Yeah. Until they became wise. And then the credit cards were introduced. My business collapsed. Then I chose the black people, those that were nearer to the owners of the means of production. And then by that time, in black lockers, and then it was mesh wires. You can see through. And then I saw in one of the locker a thick envelope like this. I broke into that locker. I took out an envelope. I went into the toilet. I thought I've hit a jackpot. After all, it was a jackpot. Because in that envelope, the first pamphlet I took out was a serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity. During that time, I had a political gripe with God. I took it back and then I said, wow, didn't know that this guy was a Christian. I took it back. And then very few criminals take back the loot. I took it back. And then the following Monday, I was in the worst condition. I thought of that envelope. I thought I would take it out and spell God from the other way around. But the envelope I took out, the pamphlet I took out was that of a serenity, of a 20 question. And then it said, do you have a drinking problem? I was 24 years by then. I read all the questions honestly. At the end of the question, of that question, I think I had 17 yeses. Then I looked at myself, I was 17, and then I was 21, 20, 24, and then I said, but I can't be an alcoholic at this age. I went back to those questions, I read them very thoroughly, one by one. I ended up with one beautiful yes. But as it said in AA, you can lie to any person. You can't lie to yourself. I was lucky enough because on the other side of the envelope, there was a name of a person I should go and see. As fate could have it, during that time, a person who introduced you in a black community, introduced you to a job with your first salary, you buy him a bottle to thank him. Me, instead of thanking him with a bottle, I wish he was knocked down by a truck. Because what would I drink if I told I buy him a bottle? And the name of that guy was on the other side of that envelope. I went to see that man. That's how I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. Who says crime doesn't pay? It pays sometimes. I came into AA, I had this difficult picture of alcoholics and people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Then I went to my first meeting in Whistle Stop. And the Whistle Stop was populated by educated natives. They were speaking English, parables. Remember, I come from an underclass of Soweto, but I was impressed. When I listened to them, I said, wow, I want to emulate them because I want to speak this English in the Shibin. I wanted to be Shakespeare of the Shibins. And then I was given a big book. I was hugged for the first time in my life. I don't remember being hugged by my mother or my father. I was hugged by Aunt Sophie. Aunt Sophie was a big African woman with very big boobs. Big as... watermelon. I suffocated in those books. I felt good. She gave me a big book. I have never looked back. From that day, colleagues, my life took a 180-degree turn. You can't believe what happened to my life after that. I did not have a matric, and then I went to school. I went to university. I got the first degree. I got a second degree. I got a third degree. I competed with the thermometer with degrees. But in AA, they told me what I should do with those degrees. And they told me that I should look at what nurses do with a thermometer in a small baby. If at all I would allow my education to go into my head, my father used to say, I stuck into Alcoholics Anonymous. My life took an 180-degree turn. And then what was beautiful is that I connected with my God. One day, I was a beautiful young man. I went to visit my mother at Baragwanath Hospital. I went to see her during lunchtime. And when I approached, my mother stood up and then held me by the hand and took me to her friends and then said, "This is my son. This is my son." Colleagues, the very same mother who once spat at my face and denounced me and said, "I don't look like her son." That's what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. And my relationship with God today is undescribably wonderful. That's all what I can say. God decided to take my wife 3 years ago. Single ladies, I'm available. But not for you. And then I used to be a horrible person in Alcoholics Anonymous. My life today vacillates between a bleeding digging and an elder statement. Because if at all you're doing job in Alcoholics Anonymous of whatever kind, you can't escape being a bleeding digging sometimes. But you must wake up and become an elder statement. Now I say, I leave it to you, your own perception, whether I'm a bleeding digging or an elder statement. But I know that my path in Alcoholics Anonymous is nice and clean. Thank you very much for listening.
Afternoon, my name is Lemogang and I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank the convention organizers for asking me to speak today. I'm pretty nervous and I'm just carrying the notebook to look sophisticated. Nothing much in it. About a couple of years ago, I decided to start doing power walks. I live in a township called Sharpeville, all the way in Vereeniging. And my walk is about 4 Ks, so I'll take a 4K walk in the morning and in the afternoon. Now, when I take the walk, there is a hill, like the mother of all hills. Like it's nothing compared to the hill from lunch. That's like absolutely nothing. And every time I would turn around the curve to face this hill, my heart would just shut down. And I'd think, how am I going to make it up this hill? And I did this for a couple of months. And on the 4th month, I had been slacking a bit and missing a couple of days. And on this Monday morning, I took this walk and faced this hill. And I thought to myself, I can't do this. Let me turn back now while I still can. There are no people looking at me. I can do it. But I continued. And as I was walking towards this hill, there was a young boy holding a loaf of bread in the morning, and he was walking down the hill. And I thought, okay, he can't see me fail. This is the ego now. I'm going to keep going, and then just as soon as I pass him, I can pass out. It doesn't matter. So I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. And as soon as I was about to pass this boy, he turned around, and he picked up pace and started walking with me. And he walked me to the top of the hill without saying a single word to me. And when he got to the top of the hill, he turned around and walked back down the hill. And I did not look back. I kept going and going. And I did this route for the next 2 years. And although I never saw that boy again, I was really grateful that somebody had held my hand that morning when I thought that I couldn't make it up the hill. Now, how does this apply to my recovery? I have always been a loner. Like many other alcoholics that I have heard in the rooms talking about the feeling of loneliness, this was always the feeling I carried with me as a child. And it was when I got into these rooms that I learned to ask for help. And it was I could only do that by having enough courage. I grew up in a family of 3 girls. I'm the baby. And my parents are both qualified pastors, so you can imagine how boring that was. And so there was devotion before supper, and then you'd have to sing a little hymn first, and then the other one chooses the Bible verse, and the other one prays, and yeah, this was my life, and I found these people so boring. So I was never satisfied with what I had. And so I started looking out. But also another thing was that we lived in Sharpeville in the apartheid times. And so a lot of children were going to school in the townships. But we weren't. And we would be driven to town to a private school, like so private that I don't even think they knew they existed. And we were just segregated from our fellows, our neighbors, because of this, you know. They used to call us white people. No, they speak English only. And so I felt cut out from my peers in the neighborhood. And then I went, because I was in a multiracial school now, I met a young girl, and she was a white girl, and then her parents were hippies. Hello, like from pastors to hippies. Like they just walk around naked in the house, you know. And, oh, okay, your dad just passed and he was naked. Yeah, well, it's all right. And we would only get in trouble for smoking weed on the veranda. Like, oh, okay. So it was a whole new, colorful world for me. This was also the first place where I met an interracial couple. My world had just been opened up, and I loved the space. So I spent most of my time there. And there was a lot of influence from them as artists as well. and the way they dressed, and I started dressing that same way, and I would go to church with a yellow sock and a red sock, and my mother would be like, no. And because of the way I dressed as well, I would be called names. Like, I was probably a lesbian at 15, according to everybody else. I was a drug addict before I even knew what drugs were, because people would just call you names. And all of this just made me feel so alone all the time. And so when I started drinking at the hippie house at 12, we had a glass of wine for supper. And I remember that night after supper, I asked my friend to go fetch the rest of the bottle. And it wiped us out. And then my drinking journey just started there. But this was the only time I knew how to be courageous. It was the only courage I knew. And it would be the only one I would know for the next 15 years. Because when I did not drink, I did not socialize, I did not interact with anyone. But once I did, hello! I am the party. And it carried on for so many years, but the only difference was that every time I drank, like I'd be blackout in no time. And so eventually I got to a space where I had no choice but to recover. My parents sat me down and they just said, look, just give us custody of the child and you can go live your life. I was like, yo, like no prayer, nothing, no intervention. And I got shit scared for the first time in my life. And my mother had been on holiday with my daughter and I was left with my father. Now my father has got a short man syndrome. But that day he was just a giant. This guy was like huge. And he was driving me to rehab and he was screaming and shouting at me. Rehab was in Joburg. That's about 45 minutes drive. That drive took like an hour and a half. This man was just gunning on forever. And we got to the reception and he was just throwing tantrums. And I thought, I need to get away from this guy. Like, this is not a man of God. Nope. And I actually went into rehab to run away from my father. Because I did not want to spend December with him. And yes, I did check in on the 30th of December in a rehab. That's how hectic it was. And as time went on and I was in treatment, I realized that I needed to do this for myself and not for anyone else. I needed to face my fears. I needed to work on who Lemo is and try to get back to my true being. And it wasn't easy. I got out of rehab and I was scared to face the world. I did not know how am I going to do it sober. But you see, the one thing that kept me going was faith. Without faith, I can't have courage. It is impossible for me. Every time I drop the faith, chaos happens in my life. And like the speaker said earlier that he was having emotional relapses, so was I. I walked out into the world and I thought, you know what, I got this. I'm cool, I got this. And a couple of months later, I realized I was going downhill. And it was because my spiritual life was not healthy. And so I started working the steps. And I always compare the steps to that hill that I climbed. Every step upwards is work towards my recovery. Yes, I'm scared. I still have fear. I still feel lonely in a crowd. I went out the other time. I asked my friend to take me out, and we went to a club. And I was like, I don't belong here. I don't. I could not feel what I used to feel. And I felt bad because she could see I was not having a good time, because the program has taught me to be honest. So, but a few days later, I was grateful to have been in that space, to have seen myself puking in the bathroom, to have seen myself passing out at the bar, to have seen myself, in all these other people. And I realized how blessed I am to have walked into these rooms. I realized how blessed I am to have you in these rooms to support me, to walk up the hill with me every single day. Thank you.
Morning, friends. My name is Sudesh, and I'm an alcoholic. What do I say? Firstly, I'm standing here sober by His grace. Never in my wildest dream did I dream that I'm going to be sober one day. But by His intervention, I got up one day and I decided, hey, this drinking is taking me nowhere. I need to do something. And how and why the thought of Alcoholics Anonymous came to my mind. Today I can tell you it was only by His grace. Because I had planned a beautiful holiday. It was December, and I knew how I was going to spend this 3 weeks. But by His grace, I joined Alcoholics Anonymous in December of that year. And right from the very outset, before I go on, I want to thank the convention committee for affording me this opportunity to share here today. It's a privilege and an honor. From the outset, I want to tell you this is my second entry into Alcoholics Anonymous. And when Frank phoned me and he asked me to share this convention, and he told me the theme will be practice these principles. And I could immediately identify, because as I'm telling you, this is my second time around in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know what happens to people who don't practice these principles. We need to practice these principles in all our affairs. It means I have to practice it honestly and thoroughly. This is what you guys are asking me. But if I practice it with half measures, I'm going to be a dry drunk, I'm going to be miserably sober, and the chances are I'm going to go back and drink. And the chances were that I went back and I drank. All because I didn't want to accept that I am an alcoholic. You see, this is a 12-step program. I heard it from the long-timers and the old-timers. I'm very, very grateful to them. Because they told me, they reckon this is not a 1-step, 2-step, and a 3-step program. You go all the way here. And my first entry into Alcoholics Anonymous, I came not knowing whether I'm an alcoholic or not. I didn't want to accept I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to believe I still had more time. I'm not as bad as you guys, and I'm still a bit too young. But when I came and I sat with you guys, hats off to you all. Although I didn't concede that I'm an alcoholic, but you guys had something special. You all were able to keep me sober one day at a time, and it went on for a good number of years. And as I'm telling you all this time, I didn't practice the program honestly and thoroughly. I was doing these steps with my sponsor, but all I was doing was scratching the surface. And just staying sober one day at a time and staying amongst you people, my life had started taking a turn. You know, this house of mine became a home. My relationship with my wife and my children were restored. Things at work were getting better. You know, no more a number at work. The guys were looking forward. You know, I'd become a good employee once again. Everything was going well. I was sticking around in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and just following what you guys were doing. I saw the humility in you guys. I saw the way you all ran those houses, the way you all spoke. And I was practicing these things and it was rubbing off onto me. And they tell you, yeah, repetition confirms habit and faith becomes natural, you know. And so these habits were becoming natural with me. And I started becoming a good husband. I became a good father. Because now, you know, my wife was proud to hold my hand and walk with me anyway. We sat at functions together. Because prior to this, we didn't know what it was. She always complained when we went to a function, she was like a widow. But now, you know, things were changing, things were getting better. And I was also enjoying it. I wanted to stay sober, and I was enjoying staying sober one day at a time. Because the guys didn't put a tall order on me. They told me stay sober just for today. And this is all I was doing every day. You guys told me to pray, but then here again I told you half measures. I was praying, I was doing a third step prayer over the God of my understanding. But when I went out there into the world, I practiced my own will. And you guys told me self-will will take me nowhere. So as a result, you know, for how long can you put on this show? Everything is going well, you're enjoying it, life is getting better, no complaints. You're getting restored, you're coming back into society, family relations are coming well, and you think, hey, you know what? I've got things under control. And slowly but surely, all the things you guys told me, you know, and also in Alcoholics Anonymous, they speak about from the beginning, I can remember you guys spoke to me about a glass in the mind and the glass in the hand. You guys told me to shatter the glass in my hand is very easy. All you have to do is take it from me and smash it. But again, Sudesh, the glass in the mind, all I need to get hold of that, and I need to be able to identify that. And the only way I can identify I'm carrying a glass in my head is if I'm able to identify with my emotions. I needed to know the steps, because this time around I can talk to you this way, because this time I understand the steps, I accept the steps. These are the principles I need to live by. This is my way of life today. I have to practice these principles in all my affairs. Or else, my friends, believe me, that glass will come back in the mind because I'm an alcoholic. And you guys told me I'm never permanently cured. All I got is a daily reprieve. And you know, I was going on, and as the years went by, I started getting comfortable, I started getting complacent. I was making meetings, yeah, but that glass in the mind, which I didn't know then and I couldn't identify, was starting to surface. And you know, you guys told me you'd want me in the beginning, and you always stressed at all meetings, watch your 3 Ps. Your playground, your playmate, and your playthings. You guys told me, Sudesh, if you are not drinking, you don't have to go to a bottle store to buy a packet of cigarettes. I'm educated, I know. The guys who used, these long timers got a lot of wisdom. They reckon, Sudesh, if you're not smoking, you're not going to carry a packet of 20s to offer everybody else. So, what I started doing over a period of time was, after a couple of years, I started joining old friends. I sat with them at work, and I sat with them on Monday mornings. And boy, oh boy, lunchtime, let me tell you, with your old drinking buddies, what do you hear during the lunch break? What the weekend was like. And all you told me was, on a Sunday, they went fishing, they went to the dam. 3 of them went, they carried 5 bottles of Jack Daniels. And I reckon, hell, man, when I was joining Jesus, we were taking Smirnoff and going. And you know, here's it, I think, you know, the sticking thing is coming, setting in again. And I started thinking, hey, you know what? the chances are I'm not an alcoholic, man. The chances are I'm a little bit different from you guys. And as I told you in the beginning, I thought I still had a little bit more time. Because I hadn't lost enough. I heard stories, I had horrible stories, I had terrible stories. And I didn't do these things so far. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous intact, with a car, with a job, with a house, with food on the table. And I reckon, the chances are I am a little bit different. The chances are I can prove you guys wrong. Because you all told me, the social drinker will become the alcoholic. But I can prove if you're an alcoholic, you can't reverse the situation. And I reckon I'm an exception to the rule. I reckon I'm an exception to the rule, and maybe I can do it differently. I told you I was sitting with these guys, talking about the drinks, and I'm thinking, if I drink and I don't drink like how I did before, and after a period of sobriety, I'll be able to drink like a gentleman, surely. Pour myself a nice drink, have only 2. Because that was my intention from the time I started drinking, was to have 2 drinks or 3 drinks. Because I knew 2 drinks or 3 drinks, and I was in a perfect condition to enjoy whatever I needed to enjoy. And after that, for the years that go on, I can't give you my drinking escapade because all my drinking escapades ended up in a blackout. Getting up the next morning, not knowing what I did, not knowing how I got home. Full of regrets, full of remorse, and always promising myself that today I won't drink or today will be different. And each day I picked up that drink and it was a repeat of the night before. And slowly but surely, my friends, just to time is of essence, slowly but surely, I started joining these friends after work, going to the tavern. They're having a drink, I'm having a Coke. I'm playing pool with these guys. And I'm coming home, walking out of the tavern after a couple of hours and giving myself a pat on the back. I got this thing under control. And where's these guys? They're staggering, they're drunk. I've been there, I didn't pick up a drink. I can't be an alcoholic. Maybe there is a chance. And I have to go home. And I'll be honest and tell you, my wife and my children knew more about Alcoholics Anonymous than I knew. They were constantly nagging me. They're telling me, Dad, you are not supposed to go there. If you're not drinking, what you're doing in the bar. You're not to have friends like that. And I'll tell them, you know what? Friends, they are my friends. I reckon they are not the ones that put the drink down my throat. But today I understand those friends didn't put the drink down my throat, but they were instrumental in me picking up a drink when I didn't want to drink. You see, as I told you, there were days when I didn't want to take a drink, and I'll find myself drinking in the afternoon because I would get good advice from these friends. They reckon, the only thing can make you better is another drink. And don't drink like you did drink last night. And I'll believe them and I'll take that one drink. And because I'm an alcoholic, one drink is never enough. As I told you, started joining them, going to taverns. Soon enough, I was getting visitors home. My home was an alcohol-free home. My visitors knew. They come, they go out, they have their drinks, they come back, they can eat, sleep, do whatever they want there, but no alcohol. But soon, I went against the wishes of this family of mine. And I insisted that these family of mine bring their drinks into the lounge, put it on a coffee table, I put the music on for them, and soon enough I was buying them the drink. And soon enough I was pouring them the drink, and soon enough I was dancing with them. And friends, all it took was one argument with the wife one day. Because by now, my wife had told me 101 times, Sudesh, you were better off when you were drunk. Because I had become a dry drunk. I had made this family life miserable. I was chasing all the wrong things in life. You guys told me what I need to get. You told me enlist the aid of a power greater than myself. I didn't want it. I was seeking material wealth. I was seeking material gain. And as a result, I lost focus. I picked up a drink. And With a simple argument, I picked up a drink. And after I put that beer down my throat, the thought of AA came flooding back to my head. And I reckon, Sudesh, it's too late. One drink. And you know what they told you there. You can't have one drink. I went down on my knees and I held my head and I reckon, hey, never again, it's over. I made a mistake. I admitted I made a mistake. And I reckon from tomorrow is a fresh start. The next day was a Saturday. And you know, AA members were here. My good friend is sitting there in the back, Morris Gaju, that was also there that day to give me that moral support and courage to get back onto the wagon. These guys never left me, man. And they gave me all the courage and strength to come back. And I promised them I'll come back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got up the next morning. And the first thing on my mind was, how am I going to get a cot? Because suddenly, from wanting to stay sober again, I went back to my old ideas and thinking, this time around, I'm only going to drink beers. And you heard a guy talk yesterday about the beer with the gold liner on the top. I was drinking Heineken, thinking it was top shelf. And believe me, for the next 5 years was hell. And as much as I wanted to come back, alcohol wouldn't let me come back. Because as much as you guys spoiled my drinking, because I knew I'm an alcoholic, my drinking is not going to get better. And all it took was that one drink, my whole household was back to normal. Life was unmanageable. And I came back. One day, I got up in the morning, sick as a dog, and wanting to end it all, because there's no reason to live anymore, because children had grown up, the wife was now not anymore dependent on me. So I could, I became useless in my own home. And I just say, this thought came to me, man. You reckon me, Sudesh, this thought came in my mind after an argument with my wife the next morning. This thought came in my mind. It reckon to me, let's compare what it was like from my first drink to my last drink. My first drink, I was at the age of 12. My last drink, I'm at the age of 48. And what has changed? And the only answer I would come to was the quantity I consumed had only changed. That was the only progress I could see in my life. But other than that, my drinking pattern and that pain, misery, and suffering I was going through was there from day one. And that day I can't forget, and for that day I should be ever, ever so grateful. Because, to go a little bit further, the step tells us, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics who still suffer. And I realized then that I have to come back into Alcoholics Anonymous and do whatever you guys tell me. This program you all have given me, even the main team, they say it works, it really does. And I had to concede to my innermost self that day that Alcoholics Anonymous works where all else fails. And I'm ever so grateful that I got this second chance. Because today I'm grabbing it with both my hands. And I understand today fully well that it is not a one-step or two-step program. It's a full 12-step program that has to be done honestly and thoroughly. I'm not going to go on and on. I'm just going to say thank you guys for listening to me. And I hope I passed your message. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.